I'm Steve Madden. I'm editor-at-large for MM+M, and I'm here in Cannes with Frank Mazzola from 21 Grams, which is part of Real Chemistry. Frank, you have a massive job and a massive title to boot. Tell me, we were just talking about the title.
Yeah, I was saying our titles could get a little obnoxious, but I'm a founder of 21 Grams, so the creative side of that, and then also Chief Creative Officer across all of Real Chemistry.
So, like I said, a big job,
Yeah.
and makes perfect sense that you're here in Cannes. What we wanted to talk about today was a little bit about the awards process and the work that is presented for awards here. Pharma and health and wellness are kind of notoriously tricky because there are more ring fences and guardrails around the work than there are for, say, things in CPG. And sometimes it's almost as if agencies game the system to produce something that's super cool that they know is going to win an award, or they hope is going to win an award, and yet it'll never see the light of day because it doesn't stay within those guardrails.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
Well, I think it's a very prestigious thing to win a Cannes. So agencies do whatever they can to be on the board to win, and that's understandable. It means a lot. But on our side of the industry, for a healthcare agency, 99% of the work that we do for clients is regulated. And historically, even in Pharma Lions, there's a non-regulated category, and that's usually where agencies play, and if they don't play there, they usually play in health and wellness. So you have these pieces and these reputations that are sort of built for companies like ours that aren't really what you do for clients. So clients don't really believe that it's possible to do that type of work. So I think one of the things that we've always tried to do or looked at was, it's almost like you're playing a video game on difficult. Really, it's the hardest thing to come out the other end with an idea that's award-worthy, especially Lion-worthy, when it goes through all the different, regulatory processes, all the things that come at it. It's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts, scene from Kill Bill. You're constantly fighting things off, and when you have a piece at the end, at shows like these, they compete against then a non-regulated piece that, in a lot of cases, an agency funds. Doesn't have any of the same processes, may run once, and they don't really follow up on it. So even if it's an idea that does some good in the world, it's not like you're following up and making sure that good happens. It sort of ends at the award stage. So one of the things I feel is important for our industry is to kind of look inward and realize that the regulations aren't as big a barrier as we make them out to be. And seeing some of the work that that wins in pharma, like the Novartis work, Relax Your Tight End. Obviously it's unbranded, but it's Super Bowl, and you would look at Novartis and say that's a very conservative client. We're not going to do anything very creative with them, but we're just not showing them the right ideas, and we don't know how to navigate the system well enough.
So it can be done, and you've proved
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
You won a Grand Prix last year, and you won an award this year, right?
Yeah, well, gold last year.
Gold, sorry.
And then bronze this year, so one of the 7 lines that were given out. And one of the things about that too is if you look at the list of lines that were won in pharma, not many of those are healthcare agencies. So consumer agencies are coming in and they're doing the type of work that we want to do. But healthcare agencies are still not believing it's possible enough to still go more in the health and wellness route.
And yet you guys at 21 Grams Real Chemistry do. You do go into those spaces.
Yeah.
What are some of the guardrails that are in place that you have to deal with, that you have to consider when you're ideating?
Well, I think it's all about your approach with clients, because when you think about what are the regulations that the FDA, for example, or regulatory bodies are looking at, they're looking at the claims you're making, they're looking at, are you trying to bury the risks? What they're not really looking at are the ideas themselves. They're not the stories you tell. If you read those warning letters, that's not the thing that they get you for. They get you for the person who's smiling too much on a bike and acting too happy. They're sad and now they're super happy. So actually the cliche of it is more risky than going in a different direction. And for us, how we get a client to think about it differently is really starts with the audience. So a lot of the things that we do, especially if they're an idea that clients are like, that seems like a little bit too much, we'll be working with the audience and they'll feed into the idea, they'll be a part of it. So if we're doing it on their behalf and we're not doing it just to win an award, that's always in clients' minds, like, sure, you guys want to win an award. When you approach it as this is going to be good for the audience and actually be good for the business because the audience is going to feel like you're connecting with them, that's kind of the approach.
So I've heard you talk in the past about real work and other work. What exactly is real work and how do you define it?
So real work is the type of work that we do for clients. So it doesn't always have to be something that goes through the full regulatory process, but I believe that real work isn't work that an agency pays for. We're in a business. It has to be something that a client is willing to pay you for, that you're doing on their behalf, ideally in service of a brand. So in health, it's a little bit different. I think outside of health, real work is this real or not? Did it ever exist, or is it just on this board? That's, our industry also, but the other side of that is if you're paying for your own idea and you're competing that way, that to me is not real.
So you've won Lions in the past, right? When you look at creativity in healthcare, what makes you say, that's a great idea? Or what makes you say, like, what were they thinking?
Yeah, I think it's what are they thinking when it's a little bit cringy and you're creating something that's not right for the audience, and something that you see and it's like, oh, there's something there. First of all, as a creative director of any kind, the beauty of that is you're seeing an idea that you would have never come up with yourself. Like I don't give myself credit for the ideas that do well for us. That's a team that you see sometimes a grain of something and you build on, but it's coming from a place where you're like, wow, I would have never thought of it that way. And it usually comes from an insight. So the more interesting the insight, something that you've never heard before, and that you kind of say when you hear it, like, I've never heard anybody put it like that, that's like half the idea. So when you start building off of that, you get excited, so that grain starts to turn into something, and then you start thinking about all the possibilities of what it could be.
So how do you create great work that succeeds, that keeps the client happy and still wins awards? You've done it, clearly. So what's the process? How do you build a team? What are you looking for? What are you asking a client to do?
Well, first, creatively, we have a creative meeting every single Thursday. So we're always talking about different kinds of work. What are people working on? How are they getting things to move forward? Second part is the brief. We always look at that and we'll beat it up and we'll make sure that we've dug deep enough on an insight and it doesn't feel generic. And then we could talk to the client about that and make sure that they see how interesting the insight is, so they don't want to go in a generic angle. And then we start to see ideas, and I never want to see too many ideas, because then, sometimes creatives they'll think that quantity is the thing. I want to see like 3 ideas per team, 4 ideas, because they're going to work on them a little bit more. And then there's the part of this, which is taste and tone. So that's the trickiest part of healthcare advertising, because there's going to be a pharmaceutical company that thinks we're a very serious company, this is serious business, and it's our taste and tone. Such and such company would never do this. Whereas we're always talking to the client throughout, what is the audience's taste and tone? What's going to be good for them? If they're gamers, how do we turn this complicated MOA into a game, and they're going to remember it because it's not passive learning, they're involved in it? Or if we're going to show them a video, I don't want to show them a boring video. I want to make sure that it's interesting to them, because it has to be just as interesting as all the million things that they could turn to in their pocket. Like, there's no way for us to expect to keep the audience's attention.
That's a real high wire act. I mean, on the one hand, what you're doing is asking a client to produce a piece of work, a commercial, say, that helps them move product. On the other hand, that commercial or that work is branding for them in the mind of the consumer. So it sounds like it's got 2 completely different tasks that it needs to accomplish.
Yeah, on the branding side, how often do you see a brand as a consumer? It's hard for us because we're in the business, but when there's a brand that's out there, you don't usually connect it to the company. You think of that as the brand, and then what's the experience for the brand? What's the purpose of this brand in life? What's it trying to do? And then you look at what's the best way for that brand to accomplish its goal. And it sounds simple, but it's not really talked about a lot. It's usually how effective is this brand? What's its tolerability? We think about it like a product rather than a brand and an experience. And when you start thinking about it as an experience for a doctor or a patient, it completely changes the way that you go about it. Even in terms of a doctor, if you're telling me that a doctor has 20 seconds to look at anything or they're getting reams of information, that's going to affect the idea, because I'm going to know that doctor doesn't have time to watch a 3-minute film about something. How do we hit them quick in a way that's going to connect with them?
You also have to consider when to hit them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And where they're going to be and how they're going to ingest this too. So,
yeah.
Is your job or the job of pharma marketers, particularly ECDs, is it getting harder or is it getting easier? Certainly getting more complicated.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think for an agency like 21 Grams and Real Chemistry, as a whole, I think it's getting easier because you need some of these breakthroughs to happen. Like this year to see, Novartis and Viagra win your Grand Prix and your Gold. That's work that people can show to clients and say, here's the type of work that we can be doing. We're already there. We want to do that type of work. I think for the rest of the industry that's trying to figure out how do I move from this kind of awards play to something that I need to sell to my client, which is a whole different skill, then it's harder. So the industry is changing in multiple ways. One are the new rules for CAN. Mm-hmm. I think that's why entries were down by a lot, because you have to have proof of impact. You have to have your CMO or a little bit lower, whoever's in charge of the brand, sign off on the idea. Mm-hmm. Your CEO has to sign off on the idea. So it's very, very hard to put what would be called scam work in the festival. It has to be pretty real. So in that sense, I think it's easier to start really digging into the work that we do for clients and saying, let's make that better.
What do you think we're going to look back on and think, man, we got that right? We were really spot on with that.
I think looking at the audience like human beings, so whether they're a doctor or a patient, they're a person just like us. If we were to meet them, we would understand them a little bit more. I think a lot of the humor that's been showing up in health is going to be great for the industry, and I think we're going to see more and more of that in the right way in 5 years, because it used to be something a brand would avoid. And then you think of health and all these serious conditions where they constantly feel the pressure of this serious disease and everything is so heavy that a lot of times humor brings levity that they don't expect, and they engage a little bit more and they appreciate it. And when they appreciate a brand, especially for medicine, they feel more connected to it. And one of the things I was just kind of talking about today was a survey a few years ago. It actually always shows up the same every time it runs. It's all of the industries, this is more in the United States, all of the industries and sentiment. And pharmaceutical industry is always bottom 2.
Right.
The only thing lower is the US government.
Yep, politicians are the only people trusted less than pharmaceutical executives, which blows my mind.
And medicine, if you think of what it is, it's the most innovative, most important product that exists, and it's meant to do good. And why do people feel that way? Obviously, there are a lot of things around that, but I don't think that marketing doesn't have a role in how people feel. I think people don't feel understood. I think they feel annoyed by it. A lot of marketers, just in the way that the industry works, and this is nothing on marketers, it's just how it goes, is they start as salespeople. So they're thinking of it from a sales mindset. So you're gonna be hit with numbers, you're gonna try to fit everything you could possibly fit in a commercial. And people who are watching it, they just wanna be understood and feel like you're doing something valuable for them. So I think the more we look at what they need versus what we need, I think that is gonna be the trend, and what the work that we're seeing now is gonna influence in the future.
What exactly do agencies mean when you say when you want your clients to be brave?
Well, it was more about some of the work that won and people referring to it as brave. And I think when you refer to something as brave, it sounds like it's dangerous. And the truth is, most of the things that we call brave are the right idea at the right time for that audience, it's not really that risky because it's made for them. So I think a brave client, maybe brave, the way we use brave is not entirely right, but I think the type of client that you want is somebody who's really looking at that audience, understanding if we move them, we're going to move the business and we can do some good at the same time. And how do we collectively get to a place where we want to do that?
What advice would you give your 22-year-old self, knowing what you know now?
I would think the advice that I would give would probably be don't worry so much about all of this. We get very hung up on awards, what it's going to do for our career. And at the end of the day, we're all just going to look back and say, are we proud of our careers? Are we proud of the work that we've done? Did it do anything? And I would want my 22-year-old self to be proud versus thinking of what it's going to do for me.
It's like Bob Marley said, don't worry about a thing.
Don't worry about a thing, yeah,
Great.
Absolutely.
Frank, this has been a great conversation. You're a great interview, you always are, whether we're doing it on Zoom or in person or in the south of France. So I really appreciate your time and your thoughts.
So much, Steve. Appreciate it.
You've been watching a video from MM+M. We're shooting this here in sunny Cannes in the south of France, and we'll have more for you, so be sure to check back soon. Thanks for watching.